evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town Board Special Meeting and Work Session for Tuesday, April 3rd, 2019. Please rise and join me for the pledge, and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then if you could just remain standing for a moment to remember the life of Patricia Fracassi, former town employee who left this world earlier today. Pat served the town as deputy town clerk for more than 20 years before retiring in 2009. Pat enjoyed working with town clerk Marianne Roberts and her staff so much that she came back to work part-time as a retiree until 2016. Pat was incredibly hardworking, funny, and smart, and I was lucky to have had the pleasure of working with her early on in my tenure as supervisor. She will be greatly missed by family, friends, and co-workers alike. Please join me for a moment of silence in memory of Pat Fracassi. Thank you.
Councilwoman Shaw,
Present.
Councilwoman Feldman,
Present.
Councilwoman DeTore,
Present.
Councilman Wiltshire, Supervisor Levenberg.
I am.
Announcements.
All right. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to shout out to Maddie Zahach, who could not join us this evening, and thank you to Christy Tomadonna, our counsel to the town, for pinch hitting for our helper for Maddie tonight, I guess I should say. So this week we have our auditor team from O'Connor Davies in the house. They are occupying the third floor of 16 Croton through the end of the week, and hopefully we will have good news to share on how we have managed the town finances in 2018. Extra special thanks to Town Comptroller Tom Warren and Deputy Town Comptroller Dale Ferreira and the Finance Department, as well as to Budget Director Maddie Zahach for all of their hard work to keep us running like a well-oiled machine this year and every year. I want to take one last opportunity to remind everyone that the Village of Ossining Water Department, which services the unincorporated town, started their semi-annual hydrant flushing program yesterday. Per the Water Department, flushing of hydrants will be performed between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. in order to minimize disruptions to our residents. We will initially flush hydrants in the low service district, which is the area west of Route 9. Once work in the low service district has been completed, we will begin working on the east side of Route 9 in Lakeville and Torbank service districts. The entire hydrant flushing program will take approximately 5 weeks to complete. As the flushing of hydrants takes place closer to your home, you may notice some discoloration in your water first thing in the morning. Do not be alarmed. Just run your water for a short period of time and it should clear up. If the discoloration persists, however, please notify the Water Department at 941-6111. The Water Department regrets any temporary inconvenience you may experience. However, this operation is necessary for us to ensure the continued cleanliness of the water distribution system. We will do everything possible to minimize any problems. Okay, so next up, this is shaping up to be a very busy week around town. Tomorrow, Wednesday, April 3rd at 7:30 p.m., visit the Chatham-Uck Yacht Club for the Ferry Sloops event, Sing Sing, A History. Ossining Village historian Dana White will be walking everyone through the surprising ways that our famous prison has shaped the village and give an update on the Sing Sing Prison Museum project. Come at 6:30 with a dish to share and enjoy a potluck supper. This event is free. All are welcome, except you have to bring food. Also, a big thanks goes out to all of those in our community who helped advocate for restoration of foundation aid funding for the Ossining School District. The state budget, which was passed in the wee hours of March 31st to April 1st, included the historically biggest single addition to state funding for the district. While it was not a full restoration of the foundation aid, there is no doubt that all of the hard work and advocacy did pay off. The school district is hosting a thank you event at Ann M. Dorner Middle School tomorrow night, Wednesday, April 3rd from 7 to 8 p.m. Everyone is invited to join. Also tomorrow at 7 p.m., Dr. Janet Levine will be hosting the next installment in the Health and Wellness series at the Ossining Public Library's Boudage Theater, discussing the power of plant-based nutrition. Dr. Levine will speak about how whole foods can help prevent and reverse disease. Dr. Levine will also prepare some yummy plant-based samples for all to try. Registration is required. Check out Austin Public Library's website at austinlibrary.org for more information. If you're looking for a slightly heartier meal tomorrow night, get your tickets right away for one or both walk-in Cleaver cooking classes with a percentage of the proceeds going to benefit the Austin Children's Center. Join longtime Austin Children's Center dine-around host Daryl Moy as he teaches you some of his culinary secrets. The theme for tomorrow, still Wednesday, April 3rd, is noodles. And Wednesday, May 8th will be Takeout Remix. The Raucous Walkery will take place right at the Children's Center at 90 South Highland Avenue. And now I'm starving. Email Daryl, DARRYL.Moy, MOY, @gmail.com or call him at 914-862-1755 to reserve your spot. This weekend marks the first of 4 weekends for Westchester Collaborative Theater's new show, The Legend, which will debut on Thursday, April 4th. Head down to Water Street and check out what has been described as an urban fairy tale about a troubled young boxer and his ascent into the world of professional prize fighting. Tickets are $25. Visit wctheater.org to order yours. Also Thursday night, check out the Get Linked In to Your Job Search program from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Briarcliff Manor Public Library. This free presentation is intended to help job seekers master LinkedIn to search for jobs. Registration is recommended by calling Shelley Glick at 914-941-7072 or emailing sglick, G-L-I-C-K, at WLS as in Sam, mail, mail.org. On Saturday, don't miss the Lantern Gift Shop's annual Bunnies and Stuff sale. Stop by to pick up spring wreaths, handcrafts, Easter cards, and more. The Lantern, located at St. Paul's on the Hill Church, which is at 40 Ganong Drive, is famous for these seasonal events, and don't forget they also have a bake sale. You can stop in anytime between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., but I would hop to it if I were you. Those craveable creations do sell fast. Did you know that Cedar Lane Park used to be known as the Rock Hill Estate? The property was once owned by the Crest family, who created over 260 five and dime stores across the country beginning in the late 1890s. The Crest family members also became prominent art collectors, and their collection, along with John Paul Getty's, was a large part of the art donated to create the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Learn more about the Crest family and the family members' impact on local and national history on Sunday, April 7th at 2 p.m. at the Vesio Community Center, Briarcliff Public Library. Hear the story of the Crest family told by Steve Worthy, who is joining us tonight to offer a great suggestion he would like us to consider, having to do with art, music, and Cedar Lane Park, the former Crest estate, some of his very favorite topics, and ours. Also on Sunday afternoon, come to the Austin Public Library for some smooth jazz featuring Tammuz Nassim. Beginning at 2 p.m., Ms. Nassim, an acclaimed vocalist, composer, and pianist, will perform in the Boudars Theater. This free event begins at 2 p.m. Austin is making big moves for the environment this spring. The Austin Documentary and Discussion Series is hosting 2 events, both with a focus on the Hudson River. On Thursday, April 11th at 6:30 p.m. at the Austin Public Library's Boudars Theater, watch Source to Sea and learn more about the Austin Beach Project you heard about a few weeks back from our OHS Environmental Club students, as well as some other ideas for Austin's riverfront. Then on Thursday, April 18th, the documentary discussion series will go on a field trip. The screening of a trio of documentaries about the Hudson River will take place at Sing Sing Kill Brewery on Spring Street. This one starts at 7:30 p.m. Learn more about these events at austindocumentaries.org. Green Austin is also making moves. They are partnering with the Greenberg Nature Center to offer 50% off rain barrels and composters through April 24th. Once you've ordered, you can pick them up on Earth Day at the Austin waterfront. Speaking of which, Austin's 9th annual Earth Day will take place on Saturday, April 27th. Ours happens to be the biggest in Westchester County and completely volunteer run. Hashtag humble brag. And this year, Westchester Magazine ranked it as a must-do event for 2019. Special thanks to Green Austin and their fearless leader, Susie Ross, for taking on this incredible and increasingly important endeavor. Finally, don't forget to sign up for the Green Austin tag sale. Last day to get your home on the map is April 16th. Learn more by going to greenoustin.org. Next Saturday, April 13th, come on down to Joseph Caputo Community Center for the Eggtastic Carnival with 2 sessions, 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Come play games, win eggs, and pose for a photo with the bunny himself or herself, you decide, while you are entertained by Annie and Safari Bob. Be sure to register in advance for this program as both sessions will fill up. Call 941-3189. That's the Recreation Department to reserve your spot for Saturday, April 13th. This event is best for families with children's ages 2 to 9. That's it for me. Does anybody else have any announcements?
I think there's an event tomorrow night too, isn't Dana White doing the history of Sing Sing at Chatham? Did you say that? Oh, I missed it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yep, that was number one. Okay.
Definitely a good event, though. I wouldn't.
Yes.
Sorry, say it twice.
No, there's no harm in, yes, there's that. And also at the same time, there's the event at AMD to just thank everybody for their advocacy for the foundation aid funding. Okay, nothing? Okay, fantastic. So in that case, we're going to move into our board resolutions.
Resolution A, Ford Fusion Energy Lease, Town Buildings Department. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining authorizes the supervisor to sign a lease schedule with Acme Auto Leasing LLC, North Haven, Connecticut, for the 12-month lease with $2,655 monthly payments with a $1 buyout at the end of the lease term for 2019 Ford Fusion Energy, VIN number as set forth in the resolution. And be it further resolved that this lease schedule is subject to the terms of the Municipal Master Open-End Vehicle Lease Agreement between the Town of Ossining and Acme Auto Leasing LLC dated March 31st, 2017.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So we are thrilled to be moving ahead with our lease of the Ford Fusion plug-in hybrid vehicle that will be used by our town building inspector. We were able to structure the deal so that we got some extra rebates from the state, as well as the federal government. Every little bit helps. John has already been using this car for a couple of weeks, but we didn't have the actual lease agreement in place. We had obtained the vehicle. I know that sounds odd, but because we had another lease agreement in place for the Nissan Leaf, we were able to tag on to that, and we just had to now structure this. So we were able to purchase and get the vehicle before we put this into place. John's already been using the car for a couple of weeks. He's very happy with its performance, and we are equally as excited to add another alternative fuel vehicle to our fleet. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Resolution B, addition to the Town Procurement Policy Keystone Purchasing Network. Whereas the Town Board annually readopts the procurement policy for the Town of Ossining, which is intended to apply to all goods and services which are not required by law to be publicly bid, and whereas the general provisions section of the policy provides in part, quote, in addition, purchases under any New York State, county, or local government contracts or purchase through the Empire State Purchasing Group, National Joint Powers Alliance, NJPA, or U.S. communities are permissible, provided that the contract is let in a manner that constitutes competitive bidding consistent with New York State law and is made available for use by other governmental entities and subject to the approval of the town supervisor, close quote. And whereas the New York General Municipal Law, Section 103, subsection 16, effective August 1st, 2012, provides in part, notwithstanding the provisions of subsection 1, 2, and 3 of this section, and section 104 of this article, any officer, board, or agency of a political subdivision or of any district therein authorized to make purchases of apparatus, materials, equipment, or supplies, or to contract for services related to the installation, maintenance, or repair of apparatus, materials, equipment, and supplies, may make such purchases or may contract for such services related to the installation, maintenance, or repair of apparatus, materials, equipment, and supplies as may be required by such political subdivision or district therein, through the use of a contract let by the United States of America or any agency thereof, any state or any other political subdivision or district therein, if such contract was let to the lowest responsible bidder or on the basis of best value in a manner consistent with this section and made available for use by other governmental entities, close quote. And whereas the requirements of General Municipal Law, Section 103, subsection 16, are followed by the Keystone Purchasing Network, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Ossining's procurement policy is amended to add the Keystone Purchasing Network as an authorized source to purchase apparatus, materials, equipment, or supplies, or to contract for services related to the installation, maintenance, or repair of apparatus, materials, equipment, and supplies. And be it further resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining authorizes the supervisor to sign the membership agreement for the Keystone Purchasing Network, subject to review and approval by council to the town.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
So we're constantly searching for ways to spend less on big pieces of equipment and projects, which very often can only be done through a competitive bid process. Although we do get what is generally a fair price through this method, there is a lot of legwork involved, and some of that legwork takes away from the ultimate savings that we enjoy on the purchase price. The good news is that through the use of carefully vetted purchasing networks, we can purchase items that have already been bid out without having to do the work ourselves. Keystone is a new one for us, but has been used by the Village of Ossining, and our comptroller, Tom Moran, feels comfortable with us joining it. With his blessing, we look forward to adding Keystone and then working with them on a project coming up in our parks later this spring. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Resolution C, Finance Capital Project Number 2019-5220, 2019 Chrysler Pacifica Van Town Nutrition. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining authorizes opening a 2019 capital project number 2019-5220 entitled 2019 Chrysler Pacifica Van for the Town Nutrition Department with a project budget of $38,400 to replace a Chevy Transit van. The project will be funded from a transfer from general fund balance.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So unfortunately, we have not had great luck with our senior nutrition department vehicles as of late. While we're still waiting for the first Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid to arrive next week, fingers crossed, we learned that one of the vans we were hoping to replace later this year is no longer safe to drive and must be taken off the road immediately. As it was already in the capital plan to replace said van, we decided that now was a good time to move forward. And the extra cherry on top is that the low bidder from the state bid for our Pacifica agreed to extend their pricing to the second unit. We were very excited to get our nutrition programs fleet back in action. Meals without wheels just doesn't have the same ring to it. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed?
Resolution D, change to the town procurement policy, NJPA Sourcewell. Whereas the Town of Ossining annually readopts a procurement policy, which makes reference to a number of cooperative purchasing contracts that the town is allowed to use for purposes of purchasing certain items without going to bid. And whereas the name of one of these contracts, the National Joint Powers Alliance, NJPA, has changed and is now known as Sourcewell. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby authorizes the change in wording to the town procurement policy to reference Sourcewell in place of NJPA.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Again, this is just another way for us to be able to do cooperative purchasing and just acknowledging that Sourcewell is the new name for NJPA. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so with that, might I have a motion to go into work session and adjourn our regular special meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so first up we have Steve Worthy, resident expert on the press estate, which formerly we spoke about, now known to many as Cedar Lane Park. Mr. Worthy called the town office a couple weeks ago and had a very interesting proposal, which he would like to share with all of us this evening. So Steve, come on up. And, oh yeah, we got to just put the power, that little button on that, right there on the remote. Nope, yep. Just push the red button at the top and aim it up to the ceiling. We should be good. Yeah. Sounded good. Karen, can you just slide over to one side? We're going to be looking at the screen, I think.
Like an old TV set.
And
I think so. It should be.
did you hit it twice last time? Oh, there it is.
There it goes. Yeah.
All right. Good news.
Hit the lights.
Let me just make sure.
Oh, this is the next slide?
Yeah. No. Now you have to use the mouse.
Hopefully you can use the mouse. Right.
Okay, so. Just get to it. Okay. So that's the first line? Okay. So just left click.
You just need to stand by the microphone.
Yep.
Okay.
Right there.
All right, thank you. Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, my name is Stephen A. Worthy, and my proposal regards my father, Cadoza Worthy, born 1923 and died 2018. What I would propose to the town is that I donate 10 of these framed photographs that I've collected on the Crest family. I've given you an example of 7 of them against the wall. And my father was the collector or treasurer for the village of Ossining. He served 1 term. and it was an unusual term because he declared when he ran for this office to end that office. And we won't go into all the details, but it saved the village a lot of money and a lot of time. And he was also the school board president. And he was also honored at the Martin Luther King annual luncheon that took place, sponsored by the Cooperative Scholarship Fund at Ossining High School, that gives scholarships to underserved minorities and people in need of funding that show academic promise and go through an interview process with that board. Get the next. I heard something click. Okay, here we go. So I'd like to show you an example of some of the photographs. Now, all these photographs were framed by me, and they were part of an exhibition. Took place for about 2.5 months at the Ossining Arts Council Steamer Gallery on Main Street. This photograph is from approximately the 1930s. It shows Rock Hill Pond, which is the 6-acre lake. There's also a landscape. In the distance, almost in the center of the photograph, is the Cedar Lane Park entrance, 2 stone pillars. And on the extreme left is a boathouse that was on the property. It was moved a couple of different times while Cress was there. And the last boathouse served the 52 Association and different disabled veterans who enjoyed a weekend retreat at Cedar Lane Park. I have 2 photographs here within one frame. This is called the Lily Pond. That was in the upper part of the property. There were also fountains at a pool house, also from the 1930s. On the top, there's a photo during the day showing the fountain in the middle of the pool that's streaming a gusher of water. There is another building called the Pool House in the rear, and you can see all the magnificent gardens that Rush H. Cress planted a lot himself and worked with a crew. According to his daughter, Jocelyn Cress, who visited Ossining a couple times, and we took tours of Ossining, and she showed me various places in the park that he was very enamored of. And this photo and some of the others that you see were courtesy of Harriet Slater. She lived on the Cress property for approximately 40 years. She was married to the caretaker's son. Now, in looking at these photographs, I found out a little later that a lot of these photographs are in the Arthur J. Slater collection of the Ossining Historical Society. They have about 4,000 glass plate negatives, and though these negatives are there, I received these photographs. They were lent to me by Harriet Slater, and I scanned them in. So that's how I got them. Now, I have a couple of color photos here. They are of Lakeview Cottage, also known as Rubin House, and Rock Hill Pond in the 1950s. These are color photographs. We have the top, a summer view, and a winter view of the same location. I received these from Rush Haskell Cress. He is the nephew of Rush H. Cress. There were 3 relatives of the Cress family that came to my initial presentation at Cedar Lane Park when it was known as Blueberry Pond Arts Center's Theater. And he was very grateful, and he had given me a CD of 125 color photographs that were owned personally by the Cress family taken on that estate. So this is through their courtesy that we are receiving these. Here's another photo of Rush, Lila McCall, his first wife, Sylvia Cress, and Jack Cress, his daughter. For the sake of brevity, I'm not identifying each person there. It also has Edwin A. McAlpin, who was a neighbor and was responsible probably for Cress moving to Rock Hill in approximately 1915-16. Also courtesy of Harriet Slater. Here's another photo of Fountains and Gardens in the 1930s. That is the same garden that is downwind of what is known as Lakeview Cottage. As I said again, we know it as Rubin House. And you can see the details where he landscaped and supervised different architects and workmen to have this beautiful fountain circled with a hedge, and it's magnificent. We have here a photo of Rush H. Cress and his grandson, Charles L. Abry IV, on the steps of Rubin House. And just point of information, Charles L. Abry IV married into the Henry Fonda family, and there's a story circulating I'm thankful for about Peter Fonda, the son, who had accidentally shot himself on the property, was taken to Ossining Hospital, operated on 3 times, and he recovered. So Henry Fonda has been to Ossining many times to visit his son at Ossining Hospital. That does not qualify. Okay. We have here the Kress Ice House. That ice house is still standing. It's in the German Bavarian style of stonework and timber. And this photograph shows men cutting ice out of Rock Hill, loading it up on ramps to the ice house. And there's a couple of antique cars from the 30s in front of the building. I have here a photo of Sylvia Kress and Charles Abry marrying at Rock Hill. The woman in the center, of course, is Sylvia, the only woman in the picture. To her left is Rush H. Kress. To her right is Charles L. Abry, her father-in-law, and Charles Abry Jr. to his left. Okay, now the town of Ossining has a 501c3 not-for-profit status. Most government entities do, to accept donations from citizens and patrons. The location I'm suggesting is Cedar Lane Park Arts Center, also known as Shine House. Like any donation, I have some suggested stipulations open to negotiations. One is a public announcement of this donation, a small plaque or something commemorating, and a ceremony commemorating Cadoza Worthy to accompany this donation. And again, this is only suggested, $500 tax deductible receipt, $50 per photo. While I had my art show in the Arts Council Gallery, I had an appraiser come up and appraise my collection that was there, as well as some other books and things. I have an archive of the Kress family there. So that's what that's based on. Okay, I would like to add just a little thing here on lessons from the City of Detroit bankruptcy. Some of you know the Detroit Institute of Art. When Detroit was in their bankruptcy, somebody said, "Oh my God, we have an art gallery that has billions of dollars worth of art." Most of them were donated by the patron Henry Ford. So this museum accepted their agreement of artwork and forbade the sale of artworks for the government's use. The municipal collection, however, which is a growing idea that's kind of gradually making itself known, could contain conditions in its charter to allow artworks in its possession to be sold for capital projects. So what I'm suggesting is that an outreach to patrons and artists, if Ossining decided to establish a municipal fund, could be used to help with different fundraising activities and different costs that the town might incur. The rising asset values of artwork far outstrips the consumer price index, real estate, and other economic measurements. So I'm kind of adding that. So the Kress family, I'm saying this to village officials, town officials, Ossining Chamber of Commerce, and Ossining not-for-profits. They've all asked me this question: would the Kress family help us to fill in the blank? And through my research and knowledge of the Kress family, I think they're waiting. He who pays the piper calls the tune. Philanthropy 101, best examples are hospitals. They put up plaques for trees, walls, buildings, operating rooms, equipment, etc. It's done all the time, and they're very successful. So recognition of patrons and philanthropists is something I think the town and village would benefit from. We had a well-known art collector named Michael Backwin who just died, and he bequeathed the Untermeyer Gardens in Yonkers, New York, with a huge donation, and he's always been very philanthropic in his activities. This is the last photograph I'll show you. Shows the same fountain and landscape from Rock Hill. This is from the 1950s. I received it from Rush Haskell Kress, and it shows you the fountain and the magnificent gardens in color. The second proposal I had was a Cedar Lane Park concert series. I'm suggesting number 1, indoor performance series. 2, nominal admission, $10. Acoustic music, because it is a small venue. It's pretty much was a 46-seat black box theater when Blueberry Pond was there. Myself, SAW, I can provide the sound system in this series, so it won't be a cost to the town for renting equipment. I'm suggesting once a month, and this particular building is larger than several other venues in the vicinity. Last mention, Creative Austining, which is an upcoming event, May 18th, 2019. And I have some handouts that I've given you folks. I won't take up any of your time. And thank you very much.
Steve, thanks so much. That was a really nice presentation.
A very generous offer.
Very generous offer. As far as the amount of money that we would be able to note as if we were to accept the donation, you know, if you could just provide us with whatever that appraiser had sent, I'm sure that we could, you know, find a way to work that out. I think that
Not so much itemized. This gentleman was not as familiar
As a collection.
you can hear my microphone.
No.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, do you want to come back? Do people have any, does anybody have any questions or you want to ask any questions? 'Cause could you come on back up and, okay, that'd be great. Okay, so anyway, just, you can restate that. So you said the appraisal wasn't exactly itemized, it was just more, it was more
Well, it
general.
doesn't identify, okay, I have probably close to 10,000 items in my archive.
You said that was somebody who came to the
Yes, they came to they came to my gallery.
gallery.
I brought, for this occasion, I brought significant portions, about 75% of my archive, and had them laid out on the floor.
Oh.
Okay, that was not, I mean, I had them on tables.
I'm just asking because you said some of them
Yes.
you just scanned, like they were scans from, you know, digital
They're
scans.
prints.
Yeah,
Yes, they are. They're
right.
prints.
So-
So that $50 incorporates the cost of the frames, the costs of the paper used, the mats were purchased separately, and also the labor and time. Some of these photographs had to be done a few times, and then the what we will call a sweat equity factor, which is probably adds maybe $10 to the amount, and that was suggested to me by the gentleman who did the appraisal.
Okay, well, anyway, we'll take that under advisement and we
Sure,
can get back
sure.
to you about
I mean,
that.
it's
don't
all-
think we're
this
gonna-
is all negotiable.
We're not gonna have that conversation tonight at the table. I just
No
wanted
way.
to get that information.
Typically, when a 501c3 gets an in-kind donation, it's really up to the donor to, put the
Right.
cost on it. So,
Correct.
You know, I think it's a receipt of
Great.
something given, and then
Right.
really it's up to the
Right.
donor and the IRS.
Okay.
True. Yes.
I mean, just again, you had a question.
I just had a quick question. Where
Sure.
did you envision those photos being hung within Cedar Lane Art Center?
Okay, when you come into Cedar Lane, there's an area to the right where there's a stage,
Right.
and there's also wall space there. So somewhere in that room was where I would suggest. There is also a room if you go straight back and then turn to your left, there's a room in the rear.
Right.
But understand this, I don't want to infringe on any activities. Dana and I'd spoken of this, so if these photographs were taken down, you had an event or something going on, you want to take them down, you're free to do that.
That was really my question.
Yes,
because I know
yes, of course,
The
of
summer
course.
camp,
Of
the
course.
kids would do a little art show and that
Of
kind
course,
of. Okay.
yes. But saying that, I think part of our educational system, they need to know about local history. There's a big move towards putting that in the school curriculum because it was not done when I went through the Ossining schools. I knew nothing about Ossining the entire time I went through both elementary school and high school here. So,
They do a bit of that in AMD for the capstone, but that's about it. And that's pretty recent.
yes, yes.
I wanted to ask you, I think the last time you were here, I believe Mr. Chavolkas was the last time you made a presentation.
No, there was another time I was here after that. I've been before the board probably about 5 times total over the 20 years that I took an interest in Cedar Lane Park when I was president of the Ossining Arts Council. Yes, sir.
But anyway, I think I asked you before, you remember the Crest had a newspaper store on Spring Street?
Five and done.
You're thinking of the wrong family. That is the family of Bill Kress, who was a fellow realtor when I was a realtor in another life. And one of the first things I did when I became a realtor, I had a directory. I saw the name Bill Kress. I called him and I said, Bill, are you related to the Kress family? And he goes, I wish.
Oh.
Well, he's related to the Kress family, but not that Kress.
No, it's a very common name in Germany. As a matter of fact, I have a huge poster of a which I have framed, which is shows their genealogy going back to 800 A.D. meticulously set apart, and they even set up a lineage called the von Kressenstein. So they were actually Kress von Kressensteins in Germany to distinguish themselves from many other Kresses. It's a very common name in Germany.
Okay. And I knew your father personally pretty well.
Mhm.
He do some taxes for us. And I got
Yes,
to know
he
him.
worked for the IRS for 12 years, so last 12 years accounting career, so believe me, I learned a lot from him.
Okay.
Okay. So in general, I'm guessing that everybody seems to think that this is something positive. Can I?
Absolutely. I think
Board
it's
on
they're always good to have our local history. I think people who visit the art center will be thrilled to see it, its evolution and the estate as it was. And as he said, I think the more people know about our history, the better.
Yes,
Especially with camps and everything there, we'll have to be a little more careful with that.
yes, of
So
course.
maybe during the summer, the smaller room where the kids can visit and have a talk about it, but not necessarily have
Sure.
activities in that room.
Whatever you decide.
And the other thing that you had talked about was possibly an acoustic music series, and we had talked about a possibility of doing a few of those concerts over the summer on Saturday afternoons,
Something like that.
something
Yeah.
like that in the
Sure.
afternoons. Does anybody have a feeling about that? I mean, I think
But
that's.
you said you weren't going to go into it tonight. You just said that.
I said I wasn't going to go into the details of the donation
Okay.
Oh, okay.
art.
Um,
I just wanted to.
Well,
ask-
I would really like to have Keith's opinion on, what his class schedules are and what current class schedules are and the other activities going on. But it sounds like a good time.
I
I
think-
mean, as long as Keith, we have somebody who manages
yeah,
that
Keith,
time.
you want to
so.
come on up? We can't hear you.
All right, guest appearance.
Guest appearance. Yeah, I know. I do know that Steve, that you had reached out to Keith also.
We're almost communicating every other day now.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm Keith Gordon, and I manage the ceramics program at the Cedar Lane Art Center for the Recreation Department. As far as I know, there's nothing scheduled for Saturday during the summer on a regular basis, so I don't think there would be a conflict. If there's any individual events, we can just work the concerts around the other. And as far as hanging this, we have, courtesy of the Arts Council, donated or loaned at least, a hanging
hanging
system.
system, yeah.
So we can put them on the wall without any further expense.
Right. And then take them down if needed for
Exactly.
any
It's very
special
easy to
events or
hang-
whatever.
To unhook them.
Great. Fantastic.
Thank you, Keith.
All
So I guess
right.
we'd have to check with the recreation department also about programming they have there.
They don't have any problem.
Okay, I'm asking.
Yes. No, but we'll meet with Bill Garrison to further discuss. Okay. If everybody likes the idea in general, and it's something that Steve wants to work on, which I think is what you said. Correct? You said you were interested in actually working on organizing said series
And being
Said
the sound
acoustic.
man.
Well,
and providing the sound.
I've hosted, probably for about 2 years, I hosted an open mic downtown Ossining at Danny'sCafe.com, for those that remember that. And I've been playing guitar for about 55 years. So I know how to put these things together and
Okay.
control them.
All right, we will follow up with you then. Thanks so much for your presentation. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, I invite Sarah Smiley from Energize, the Energy Improvement Corporation that was an an offshoot of Sustainable Westchester initially, and then became its own entity. And we've had you here several times, often with Mark Hillking. Mark's not here tonight, but Elaine Perot is here, who is one of the executive directors. And thanks for joining us tonight. You're here to talk to us about the next wave of PACE financing product and how it, what do we have to do with it here in the town of Ossining?
Yes, exactly. Thanks so much for the opportunity to present tonight again. My name is Sarah Smiley. I'm Director of Member Services for the Energy Improvement Corporation, or EIC, also known as Energize New York. We are the nonprofit local development corporation that implements New York's Property Assessed Clean Energy, or PACE, finance program on behalf of our member municipalities across the state, including the town of Ossining. And I'm here tonight, as the supervisor said, because we're introducing a new product called Open CPACE to better suit the needs of our member municipalities and also to facilitate more impactful clean energy projects in our communities. To give a little bit of a review about PACE, it's financing that's an alternative form of capital used by commercial and nonprofit building owners to fund energy efficiency upgrades or to install renewable energy systems. It can be used for 100% of the project's cost and can be repaid over the expected life of the improvements, which is generally 20 to 30 years. And it also transfers to the new owner if the property is sold. So this allows property owners to improve their buildings, to reduce their operating expenses, as well as to positively impact the environment. PACE financing is a public benefit authorized by state law, which enables municipalities to secure repayment through a benefit assessment lien on the improved property. Our new program, Open CPACE, removes any administrative and financial obligations from the municipality while still enabling you to offer this public benefit. With Open CPACE, we create a benefit assessment lien that is separate from municipal taxes, allowing EIC to bill the property owner directly and to administer collection of the payment. The municipality will not need to add a charge to the tax bill of the property, and it will not be responsible for guaranteeing payment from the property owner. The PACE lien is now subordinate to municipal taxes and senior to non-municipal liens. So as with the old PACE program, we will require lender consent if there are any mortgage holders on the property. Our new Energize New York website lists capital providers who are approved to participate in Open CPACE. They will do the underwriting and determine if they'll finance the project and for how much, or how much financing they'll provide. And property owners will now benefit from having a choice of capital providers with more competitive interest rates and less expensive capital overall to fund their project. If for any reason a property owner does not pay the annual PACE installment, the capital provider will be responsible for enforcing the delinquent PACE lien using the same timeline of foreclosure that the municipality follows for delinquent tax liens. But before doing that, the capital provider must pay off any delinquent taxes that the property owner owes to the municipality. As the program administrator, EIC will confirm that the project complies with the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority's commercial PACE guidelines. NYSERDA funds EIC and also serves on our PACE advisory board. And so they've been really involved with the evolution of our PACE program. And they're very supportive of this new direction we're taking it in and are excited about the potential of Open CPACE to facilitate big projects that significantly reduce emissions. And they're encouraging municipalities across the state to adopt this new program. We're also seeing a lot of interest from property owners who want to use Open CPACE to incorporate clean energy components to their development projects. Using Open CPACE will enable building owners to go much further in the level of energy efficiency that they can achieve in their projects. So because Open CPACE operates very differently from how we did PACE previously, it does require that the town adopt a new local law and sign a new municipal agreement with EIC. Because we can only implement PACE on behalf of the municipality, you need to enable it to make it happen. But EIC provides those template documents of the local law and municipal agreement. I'd also like to share some information about other non-finance services we provide for homeowners, but I thought I would pause for a moment to see if there are any questions about Open CPACE first.
Okay. Are there any questions? We haven't had a chance to thoroughly review. Council has briefly reviewed. I know that because I am actually on the board of Energize as one of the member municipalities. The members are populate the board, so I know that the language has gone through many iterations with other municipalities and other corporation councils, whether county. I'm guessing NYSERDA's reviewed this. I know that New Rochelle has reviewed this, And I think that there are a few other counties that have also taken a look at it. So that doesn't mean that we're not going to have questions also from our council. We probably will. But we did have one question going into this, which was
Well, one of the things that you and I had talked about is how this will work with the existing legislation we have, because as
We do
the
have-
supervisor pointed out to me,
we were
go
saying,
ahead.
do we grandfather the current local law that allows the old pays product? Because I mean, or what do we do with that local law? Because we still do have some.
You do have a financing here,
Right.
correct? So which we will continue to administer that financing that already exists.
Right.
So this is a completely separate program that could operate concurrently with the old PACE program. Going forward with new municipalities, we're only offering open CPACE, but for those municipalities that have already been part of the program and have current financings, we of course continue to administer those loans.
But so going forward, would there be any reason why a property owner would go under the existing local legislation, not the new C-Space?
Well, we do not have, the only capital providers we have are for the new Open CPACE program.
Okay, so that's all that'll be offered. going
Correct,
forward.
yes.
But
So maybe
then
what would
these
happen is we would try to grandfather. I mean, not grandfather. That's not the word I'm looking for.
it would sunset. Or
Sunset.
You would
That's the word. Yes.
I mean,
Sunset.
we could play with the language, but yeah, we would have to leave that legislation alone
Until such
until
time as the
right.
other loan was fully paid.
And one other question I had, and you mentioned this a little bit, under the current PACE financing, the property owners, they have to get their mortgage providers or any other secured lenders to sign off that their loan will be subordinate to this financing.
Yes.
Okay,
that's
so
correct.
that concept isn't different in here.
It's the same, right? It's
Right,
the
it's
same.
the same
Correct.
concept.
Absolutely.
And you found that their banks are willing to do that?
Yes. Well, the capital providers that we're working with operate in PACE programs across the country, and they're also getting lender consent there. So, they're looking for what works, and this works for them.
And I think that the reason that we're back again is because I think NYSERDA and also EIC were looking for ways to make this a more effective product, and this has the potential to be much more effective. So again, back before us, so that we can enable the product to succeed, again, to achieve the goals of improved energy efficiency for commercial, not for profit development and restoration. Right? It's new as well as.
Yeah. Well, currently it's we finance energy efficiency in existing buildings, but that includes gut renovations and additions.
Right.
So that works for a lot of redevelopment projects, and renewable energy can be financed in either existing or new construction.
Okay. Fantastic.
And yes, just to echo what you said, we really see this as like the next stage of really facilitating in a more streamlined way these projects and bringing in a lot more capital to fund these projects from outside New York. And if I might just give a little shout out to another program we offer. So in addition to our commercial finance program, we have a homeowner services department, which conducts community campaigns you might be familiar with that they're around home energy upgrades, and they support homeowners through the upgrade process. So this program is funded separately by municipalities who choose to participate. Currently, it's running in Bedford and New Rochelle, and they're very pleased with the community engagement it generates. And we also offer programs for low to moderate income earners under NYSERDA's Assisted Home Performance with Energy Star program, as well as the Empower program, which is no-cost energy efficiency solutions to eligible homeowners and renters. So that's something our residential department can offer if the town is interested. And if you are interested, I would welcome my colleague, Lauren Broyce, who runs that program, to do her own presentation, because she would do an excellent job. And we also implement NYSERDA's Heat Smart campaign in partnership with Sustainable Westchester, and they'll be issuing an RFI soon for additional municipalities who would like to participate.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So much.
I
Any,
actually
any
have
other
one more
questions?
question.
Oh,
Any
of course,
questions,
go
Sarah?
for it.
Sorry. I just, yeah, as the supervisor said, I apologize. I haven't had a chance to get through the entire municipal agreement yet, but I did go through the local law, and it seems that the way the local law is worded is that, like, your fees for administering it are added as part of the what's financed in the secured amount. Is that correct?
Yes, and I will say that the fees are lower under this new program
Okay.
because we no longer have to fund a reserve pool for our municipalities, and that had added to the fees in the original program. So that's part of why this is more affordable to property owners.
Great, thank you.
And I have two handouts, if I may, just turn them in. One is about the Open CPACE program, and one is residential marketing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No more questions? Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it. And I think that the follow-up will just be that we will have our council review with any questions, get back to you, or
I
lawyer.
anticipate, sorry, I
Yeah.
apologize. I anticipate it'll just be more clarification than, actual substantive changes, just making sure I'm properly understanding everything.
Sure. Yeah, please give me a call or email. Thank
And
you
then
very much.
presumably, if everybody's okay, and we're all good, we could add it to an upcoming regular meeting to adopt. Okay?
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Have a great night. All right. And our final work session topic for the evening. Yay. Wanted to have a follow-up conversation about the homestead study. We had had many conversations since the town had adopted 100% value role back in 2016. At that point, the town had an option to adopt the homestead option, which would separate properties into two classes, a commercial and a residential class. This would have had the effect of basically rejiggering the balance between commercial and residential properties, and it would also have put condominium properties that are currently valued as commercial properties into the residential class. At that time, the town board at the time had referred to some research that had been done by SUNY New Paltz. At the time it was called the CREO Center, that was on the homestead impact that adopting homestead had on a number of municipalities, many of which were a little bit upstate from here. I'm not going to say upstate because depending on where you're from, you may think it's just mid-state, but a little bit upstate from here, also in the Hudson Valley, and the impact seemed to have had a negative impact. Sorry for double use of the word impact on the downtowns in some of these communities like Kingston, Poughkeepsie, and a couple of the other communities. So at the time, the town board sort of looked at the landscape and felt that this was not something that was good for Ossining. The other thing that we saw was that there wasn't a major shift between residential and commercial in valuations from full value to full value, and that was another reason why homestead is also often adopted, because it has the ability to basically, if the residential portion of properties in the community takes on the burden of the new full value and basically shifts the balance, homestead gives you an opportunity to shift the balance back and make it more even between commercial and residential. We, over time, have had a group in the community had approached the town and basically had provided us with a report as to why they believed that homestead was, in fact, the right option for the town. And we all had a chance to review that, that study and speak to some of the members of our community over time. Mr. Gershner is here in our audience tonight, representing some of whom are commercial realtors and residential realtors as well, and they basically presented their case for why they felt that adopting homestead was a more equitable approach to valuation. The town board at the time chose to undertake our own study to see what in fact the potential impact would be on Ossining by also taking a look at what some more like communities that are a little farther downstate, closer to us in Rockland, Putnam, and Westchester County who had adopted homestead, what the impacts had been on other communities, and what would the likely impact be on Ossining if we were to adopt homestead as an option. And we commissioned the study. We've had a presentation by the Benjamin Center at SUNY New Paltz, which is the same organization that actually conducted the study in Kingston. We'd gone out for requests for proposals, and they were the winning and only bid. And they, I think, provided an excellent assessment of what the landscape was, and we all had a chance to review that, as well as hear from the community who also had a chance to review the study. So this evening, we thought maybe that the board would just have an opportunity to discuss our reaction. We haven't really talked about our specific reactions yet to the study, and then we could talk about any potential next steps. So with that,
Mr. Gershner, who you mentioned previously, did hand up some materials requesting they be circulated to the board. It's obviously up to the board. It's a work session, so I don't know.
I mean, you could certainly circulate them. I don't know that we're going to have a chance to review them now. They're just coming to us at this moment. Okay. Yeah. And I think, well, I did reference that the community had an opportunity to read the study and also respond to the study. We did have a town hall meeting a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I'm not sure what the exact date was.
I think it might have been the first meeting in March.
First meeting in March. So about a month ago, we had an opportunity to hear from the community. And, you know, to be fair, we heard really mostly from condominium owners, and condominium owners are, for obvious reasons, opposed to the town board adopting homestead. And that's, you know, to be put into context again, just for people to realize that there were about 1,800, almost 1,900 condominium units in the town out of a total of 10,800 parcels. All right, so I'm just going to open it up for anybody from the board who has anything that they might like to say. Okay, sure. Councilwoman Feldman.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Okay, well, when we first looked at it, you know, we all looked at it and, well, okay. Those that were on the board at the time looked at it carefully and came to the decision, you know, the decision that we did. But some very respected members of our community, of our real estate community, really thought that there were things we weren't aware of, and they, you know, wanted us to look deeper. So we did the study. Things I learned from the study that I didn't know before was that the tax break that the condos, the tech condos being valued as businesses started as a type of affordable housing, and I wasn't aware how the inequity began. But it turns out that it was meant as a way for people to get into the middle income and lower middle income people to be able to break into home ownership. And it seemed like that worked for a while until the developers really kind of got on board and took that to a whole new level. But I can see what the intent was. So I wasn't aware beforehand that it was a purposely inequitable, you know, inequitable thing.
I think saying it was purposely inequitable.
Well, not per. Well,
I just think that
they were giving them a break,
yeah.
a tax break on purpose. They were making an affordable type of housing. They were incentivizing people. That's a better word. Thank you. They were incentivizing people to begin home ownership and giving them an avenue to do so. So I found that very interesting. You know, as a study says, there's really no good answer. It's a, you know, we're between a rock and a hard place. There's no way to, you know, fix it from this level. It really, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's a mess. The valuations, I mean, people bought their houses with that amount that they were going to have to pay in taxes, and to change that completely, you know, the formulation was the formulation when they bought the house. And to change that out from under them after they already have an established budget or what they're working with, you know, the Benjamin Center agreed it's just not the right thing to do. I agree with that. It's too damaging, and they didn't do anything wrong. It's, you know, they weren't undervalued like when we did the full assessment. You know, some people were undervalued by state law when we did that whole reassessment, and some people really got hurt by that, and we did our best to mitigate that by, you know, having the phase in and everything. But, you know, these people aren't doing it wrong by state law. They're using the state valuation at the full valuation of the property as Tyler did, and, you know, there's no way to fix that without really causing a problem to me. So I don't know how you feel. You know,
I tell you, every time I hear this discussion, and I've been in all of them, I think.
I think you have
And
more than any one of us at this table.
And each one of them
Yeah,
get
Mr.
more and more confusing. So I don't know what's good or what's bad. I don't know. I'm wondering if our viewers and our people outside this our little thing here, if they know what's going on, because I'm sure it's confusing to them. And even the presenters, the last time they had stuff they didn't even know what was going on with when we were up there on Spring Street.
actually, one of the things I thought when I had looked into it myself was that if we did adopt homestead, there would be a big difference between the commercial, what the commercial people would say, and that they would have to assume a much larger portion of the taxes, and that's not true at this time. Initially, but that's what I'm saying, at this time. But as it evolved and went forward, especially if we had tax roll changes, it looked like it could negatively affect the commercial entities, you know, commercial entities of our town. There is really no way to legislate out of that. Also, particularly moving to me are the communities that are sorry that they did it and don't feel like they can reverse it in any way. That puts a lot of brakes on for me. You know, the fact that, well, Kingston would have to raise the property taxes on their people by, what was it, a third, if they were to go back on all the homeowners. I mean, that's just, and that Stony Point and Havistraw also regret doing it, but don't really feel it's a viable option to undo it. That would be too hurtful to all of the homeowners. That pushed a lot of question, and I really don't think this is right for Ossining at all.
I mean, this is something. Obviously, the community and the board have given this tremendous amount of consideration. There were compelling arguments on both sides, and we're always interested in fairness. But the intent of the incentive for condos remains as important today, I think, as it does when it was initiated. We have a crisis of affordability, and one could argue creating more equity between homeowners and condos is one way to address it, except the increases on the condo owners and taxes is so much higher than it would be for the increase or the decrease in taxes for the homeowners, that I feel that that's not necessarily the solution to that's going to really remedy what we need. I think there were a lot of compelling arguments about the density of condos and actually the increase in the tax base that they provide via that density. There's a lot of issues. I cannot, I have to agree with Dr. Benjamin and the study. I can't in good conscience vote on something that would raise somebody's taxes without really, again, this isn't an issue of a reevaluation that had been prolonged. This is an issue of somebody buying something based on an understanding that this was how they were going to be taxed fairly at the time. I see no, again, after a lot of discussion, I am, and I want to remind everybody, we're all homeowners here. We don't have any condo owners on the board, but as a homeowner who really does understand the impact of high taxes in this community, I can't see trying to amend that or mitigate my taxes on the backs of so many others who I think it would really harm. So I think there's other things we could do. One of the things that, going back to affordability, when you look at, we are now subsidizing, in a sense, condos that can be upwards of $1 million in some cases. So that's a benefit that maybe we don't want to subsidize. I don't think most taxpayers want to subsidize people in $1 million homes. However, I think that there are opportunities to raise this issue at a state level. I think there are opportunities to look for income-based legislation that would have a more sweeping effect. And I do think there are things we can do to prevent this in future developments and change it going forward. But penalizing the vast number of people, the majority who do not live in $1 million condos, I think is not a viable option.
I wasn't here for the first study, but I did read it. I don't think the second study showed anything that was demonstrably different. And to your point, Karen, the harm that it would do is just not something that I would be okay with. And again, we are homeowners, so I guess for the most part, we could have seen some benefit if we do it as homeowners, but the harm that it would cause to most of the condo owners who are under the $1 million tax, under the $1 million home valuation, I think the harm that it would do would be just catastrophic, basically. So I don't think there's a lot, we're kind of hamstrung at this level. There's not a lot we can do at our level to mitigate it. And so unless there's something done at the higher levels, I think we're stuck where we're stuck.
Yeah, and I also think we need to address the fact that this would not be a sweeping town decision, that you have the school district and the village too.
And
so the process to
school districts,
two villages, two school districts, correct. So the process that it would take to just get everybody to be in agreement.
And they've shown no interest in making
none,
that change.
Zero. So the process you're talking about, years in the making, you would have board turnover during that time. So I don't even know if it's feasible to get the consensus that you would need to have this really be effective in any meaningful way. But I think maybe resources better spent on lobbying the state.
So I have to agree with everything that everybody said. Again, just to reiterate, we are 5 single-family homeowners who all would stand to personally benefit from if we adopted Homestead in the short term. I think that there are long-term consequences to this and even short-term consequences to this, even if we were to hope for some special legislation that the state could adopt to allow for a phase-in over time, which is something that this group who's been lobbying for us to adopt Homestead has suggested, and which is reasonable because that is, again, that's something that we did undertook for the reval that the state did allow us to do, and they had never done that before. One of the things that Councilwoman DeTore, I think you had suggested, was asking the state to consider some kind of almost like a circuit breaker legislation for which looks at income and property value similar to the STAR program, which is currently undergoing a revamping or has undergone a revamping in this recent state budget, to actually say, okay, these are very high priced properties and shouldn't necessarily get the same kind of subsidy, whether from the STAR benefit or from the condo benefit that they currently receive. And, that was something that Benjamin Center was interested in pursuing. Again, they do a lot of work with making recommendations to the state for legislation. And it was also something that our Assemblywoman, who's the chair of the Real Property Committee in the Assembly, was interested in as something that might have some kind of legs. Even though we know that the state hasn't acted to make any changes to the condominium assessment, that doesn't necessarily mean that they wouldn't if something reasonable came up. And again, if we were to address this from the perspective of affordability, which is certainly where the condominium owners have come to us from that perspective, people who are empty nesters, or have, again, taken advantage of, and we know that, retired, that are on fixed incomes. We know that there are an awful lot of people in condos who are in those situations. Not everybody, and we can't say who everybody is. And certainly we know that there are people who are in fixed incomes who live in single family homes who would stand to benefit in the short term from us adopting homesteads. So, how is it possible that we could be looking at this and saying that this is fair for us to not do this? The immediate impact of adopting homestead, I think, would force a rejiggering and, condo flight. And that is going to, in turn, have an impact on condo values. We know that condominiums typically grieve their taxes regularly anyway. So this is going to now go into sort of a tailspin, I think, with the condominium properties going in and grieving their taxes and then having a whole shift in values. And all of this is going to affect our ability to maintain that even balance between commercial properties and residential properties. I think, again, that's going to have a negative impact on our local businesses, as well as the condominium market here in Ossining. And ultimately, I think that's going to have a negative impact on the perception and, people wanting to come here, whether it's to develop any type of development. Certainly nobody's going to want to build new condos, and maybe that's okay. I'm not saying we need more condos here, but we have heard from one commercial developer, condominium developer, Mr. Ginsberg, who developed condominiums here in Haverstraw, about the negative impact adopting homestead had on Haverstraw. He had written to us and said that kind of was blindsided when they adopted homestead. He didn't understand what the impact was going to have, but it was devastating. So, again, I feel like we've considered it. I just wanted to read the last page, and again, you can read the entire report. It is posted on our townofossining.com website. The last page from the Benjamin study, the impacts of the adoption of the homestead, non-homestead property tax system in Ossining, says the following. The prospect of the adoption of homestead, non-homestead offers the Ossining Town Board a Hobbesian choice: continue an inequitable status quo or achieve equity by imposing immediate tax increases, risking larger additional ones, and or affecting serious long-term financial costs upon about 1/4 of the town's homeowners. This research does not define a best local alternative. Current state policy provides the town no pragmatic method to achieve the desired tax equity. Therefore, it suggests the prudence of forestalling change until state policy revision is achieved that mitigates the negative effects of available alternatives on so many of the town's residents. I think that kind of defines what I've heard from all of you. Except Mr. Wiltshire, because you said you're still, I don't know if you're on the fence or not, but
I understand some. It's not that I don't understand it, but I know, because I'm reading a lot of it, but I also know that the public do not understand a lot. Well, that they let us know the other night that they don't understand little bits and pieces.
Mhm.
And I think that's where the problem would come in. And here in short term, and you changing your what you have now and expecting short term, which is what, 2 years, 10 years, or whatever the time may be. But for a homeowner, that's their biggest investment, and they don't want to. They or I want to take a chance on that, and miss and lose it.
I think there are a lot of unseen consequences, and I think that the report identifies what they most likely would be. And while there's no way you can guarantee anything, there's no guarantees for anything. Again, listening to everything, and there were again compelling reasons on both sides, but the overwhelming data, the overwhelming, I think, even though that we did receive a lot of information from homeowners, there's no question that taxes are a burden on everybody in our county. This is, New York State is the highest tax state in the nation. This is a huge issue. I'm not sure that this intervention even begins to get to the root of our tax problems. And I do think that one of the really good things that came out of it was a reassertion that this is about affordable housing. Affordable housing is also an economic crisis in our county right now. So to take away affordable housing options, even though one could argue this benefits people beyond those in needs of affordable housing, but when we talk about affordable housing, it's just not low income housing. We're also talking about workforce housing, and this would fall into, condos would fall into that.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, but a large number of them would fall into workforce housing, and a workforce is important to the economy too. So I think that the good news is that this raised an issue that even the Dr. Benjamin and his colleagues hadn't really identified, is there an income-based solution? An income-based solution seems maybe more viable than other overhauls at Albany level. We have some support for that, probably in our best interest to push for that, and join with other communities who would want to do the same. But I don't know that we have as much leverage when we work on this level when we're talking about the tax problems that we have.
Right. So trying to solve the tax problems here may, again, not necessarily result in what the objective is.
We can do, we can and we do all that we can do to make sure that we keep local taxes in check, but ultimately the impact that we really need to have has got to be done on a larger level, more systemic level with the state. And I think that maybe having this debate and talking about it did raise some other opportunities that could be more viable and more impactful to a broader number of people, which ultimately affects our ability to stay here too. So I always think with scale there's impact. So.
All right. Well, thank you all for that. And thank you to our community for your input. Mr. Gershner, thank you for your chart of recent sale prices for homes and condos and their assessed taxes. I think that's what this is. I think that, you're obviously trying to show us the comparables. It's hard to know what, size-wise, what these all are. We don't have all of the data, but we appreciate the input.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's
No, we have the value, the sale price, and then
right, which
the
is how our
taxes.
taxes are assessed. So,
Right. No, I totally get that.
but yeah, there's a
We
it's
I think
different. We
we're-
get
I think,
it.
And I just want to say again, I think that we have all said that we don't believe that this is fair in the sense that of fairness, where people are paying taxes based on their value. I think that we have said that multiple times. We don't think that this is a fair breakdown of how taxes are distributed. I think have also said that it's a type of a subsidy essentially, and the rest of the homeowners are subsidizing to a certain extent the condominiums taxes because we are paying more of the overall burden, and the great majority of that overall burden is, you know, again, the school taxes. So for, you know, and we don't pay, we're not fee based. We don't pay based on how many children go to school or whatever. We all acknowledge that. But I think that we also acknowledge that adopting homestead has unintended consequences, long-term consequences, short-term consequences that may not really get us to the point of achieving equity, and are in the process are going to upset a large portion or quarter of our tax base. So, or not our tax base, but our property base. So with that, I think that we're going to move on. Correct?
Decide not to implement.
And we're choosing not to
Implement
take any
homestead.
action on homestead, which is, we're not going to do anything at this point. We're good with that? Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Again, thank you all for your input on that. And with that, I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight and ask for a motion to go into executive session for advice of counsel and personnel.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. I hope you'll join us next Tuesday, April 9th at the courthouse for our legislative session. We will include a See You Soon celebration for our retiring highway superintendent, Michael G. O'Connor. I hope you'll join us. Have a great night, everyone.